Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Kathy Hawks, Senior Associate Dean of External Engagement. We hope that you've been having a great time at Reunion, spending time with each other, spending time back on campus. So much has changed around here, and we just love hosting you here. Sometimes we say one community, infinite connections, but the alumni community has grown so much over the last 20 years. Certainly at Sloan, we have over 31,000 alumni all over the world, and at MIT, over 150,000 alumni. So being together, as we know from the pandemic, was not always possible, but now that we can all be together, it's just so fun to be together here and around the world. We spend plenty of time away from here. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dean Rick Locke. Rick joined us almost a year ago on July 1st as the John C. Head III Dean of the MIT Sloan School of Management. So Rick and I worked together on his last tour of duty when he served on the faculty here at the Sloan School. He's also your fellow alumnus from MIT and spent time away from here as Provost of Brown and as Dean of Apple University. We are so lucky that he is our Dean and leading us with an incredible vision. So I will turn things over to Dean Locke.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really wonderful to see you all, and thanks for coming. This is really terrific to see so many people here on this beautiful, sunny New England spring day, and that you would take the sacrifice to be indoors. It's really great to be here. And as I was thinking about this experience, I think part of what's so great about this role is the connection with the alums. Is meeting people from all over the world who, some of them I've taught, others I haven't, but it reminded me of the thing that I missed most when I was away, which is the incredible strength of this community. We have this amazing group of people who, of course, are smart, who are doing important work, but who are really trying to improve the world. And in today's world, that's really a gift. And I feel so fortunate to be back in this community. So thank you all for being here today. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the state of the school, how things are going. Talk a little bit about the priorities of the school, what's our strategy going forward, and how are we doing in terms of making progress towards that strategy. And then we're going to have a fireside chat afterwards, okay? So with that, let me just begin and give you a little bit of the state of the school. This will be very brief. The good news is that the state of the school is great. We are in really good shape. And that's very important because higher education is having difficult times these days. And yet here at MIT Sloan, we're in excellent shape. And when you're thinking about what makes universities strong, it's really about the people. Universities are only as good as the people we're able to attract and retain. And to show you sort of evidence of our strength, let me just give you some evidence of how we're able to actually attract and retain really top talent. The first slide I want to show is Georgia Perakis, who was the interim dean for a while. And she's coming back into the dean's office, which makes me incredibly happy. Georgia and I knew each other in my last tour of duty at MIT. She's incredibly smart, very energetic, has a great vision. And she and I have been talking for over a year about having her come back into the dean's office. And she's agreed to serve as deputy dean, focusing on our global initiatives, our research centers and initiatives, and especially curating those strategic priorities that the president of MIT has established and that MIT Sloan is really leaning into. So this is a real testament, again, to the strength of this school. But more than that also is how we're doing with admissions. Again, this is a tricky time for higher education. And if you look at the top row, you can see what are the expected enrollment numbers. And you can see that in many of the programs, we're actually exceeding those enrollment numbers. If you look at the EMBA, it's way too early in the enrollment cycle to judge that. But the rest are doing well. The PhD, we over-enrolled last year, so we actually had to bring it down this year. But this is really great. We're able to attract excellent talent from all over the world, all different backgrounds, into all of our programs. So that's a really great sign. Another great sign is how we're doing with recruiting faculty. We attract and try to recruit the very best faculty in the world. And we're competing with other major universities, other major business schools to do that. That we were able to actually recruit 10 of the 11 people that we made offers to is really amazing. You can see they come from excellent universities. Some are starting soon, some are starting next year because they have a year of postdoc, et cetera. But this is a sign. And this is something that actually a couple of years ago we were struggling a little with. We had only about a 50% yield in our attraction. Now you can see we're doing extremely well. And we're promoting amazing people. One of the great privileges of this job is to have to present the individual cases for all promotions in the school to something called the Academic Council. And the Academic Council is the council of all the deans with the president and the provost, and you actually have to make the case, and they vote on it. And if you don't make a strong case, that may not go through, et cetera. I had the great pleasure of actually learning about the work of these people and presenting them, and these are just really world-class scholars and amazing teachers doing great things. Let me just give you two examples. One is Taha Shukami, who just went from assistant professor to associate without tenure. Taha does this amazing work on studying sort of these behavioral nudges in terms of investment decisions. If you think about retirement funds, how are you supposed to be nudged into actually putting more money aside from your pension? And he did an amazing data analysis showing that actually it depends on, if those nudges work differently depending on who you are and where you are in your life cycle. Right? So it's not always works. Actually, for people who are earning a lot of money, et cetera, they can do it, but they are not the ones who really benefit from it. Other people who maybe are less well off could benefit the most, but they don't actually have the resources to do the nudge. And actually, if they don't have the nudge, it actually evens out after about 5 years. So he's actually changed the way people are thinking about investment decisions in their pensions, or whether they should invest in the stock market as opposed to bonds. Really world-class work changing the field, and he's a junior faculty member. Another example is Karen Zhang. Karen has just been promoted to full professor in the operations management field. Her specialty has been on supply chains, but she's been doing this amazing work, taking her expertise and basically trying to redesign these kinds of digital clearinghouse markets that exist in some developing countries to basically link small farmers to buyers so they get a better price. And she's actually designed these multiple auctions so that the farmers could actually get the best price possible, and ran a field experiment in India in different states with thousands and thousands of people to show how it works. So it's methodologically strong, it's theoretically interesting, and it's having a positive impact in the world. That's just two examples of the amazing people that we have here. And aside from the people, which again, I think is the number one judgment of how well we're doing, can we attract, can we retain, can we promote the very best people, we're doing really well with fundraising. Just to give you a sense, this is more or less double what we ever raised in any single year, and it's almost half of what we raised in the entire campaign last time. And I think this is a testament to basically the strength of the message, that what the world needs today is what MIT and MIT Sloan have to offer, and our friends, our donors, our alums are leaning in. And what we're asking for is basically fellowships, fellowships to make sure that our students can come here, regardless of whether they have the ability to pay. Endowed chairs, so we can grow our faculty, which is very, very important for us. Support for faculty research at a time when federal funding is being cut. How do we make sure that we have the funds to seed cutting-edge innovative research so that our faculty are actually taking the field to the next level? And curriculum development, because we should be continuously innovating our education. And so that's what we're raising funds for, and it's going really well. So just to summarize, in terms of the state of the school, if you judge by the most important indicators, which are people, we're doing extremely well, and we're also doing well with fundraising at a time of great economic uncertainty. So just to give you a sense of that. Now let me give you an idea of the priorities, like where are we going? And why are we going in these directions? And let me tell you a little bit about how I came up with these priorities. So after it was announced that I would be the next dean, I was living and working in California, and I would come back sort of 1 week a month and speak with staff and faculty and students. I traveled also with Kathy in different places and spoke to alums, et cetera. And then once I got here, I continued those conversations. And I had hundreds of these conversations. And I was asking people what works well and what needs to be improved. And can you sort of give me some advice? And what came out of those conversations were sort of 4 themes that I think really have to drive the strategic future of the school. The first one is we need to strengthen our connections with the rest of MIT. MIT Sloan's biggest asset is that we're embedded in this amazing institution called MIT, and how do we get closer? How do we link together our students, our faculty, our research, our teaching in ways that we can produce people who actually have a deep knowledge of innovation and know how to take that innovation and make it real because they know something about markets and managing people and organizations and incentives. That's something that only we can do, and it's an asset that can't be replicated. So number 1. 2 is how do we reimagine management education? And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but just to be frank, management education has become somewhat stale. We've been more or less teaching the same things in the same ways for years. But the world has changed. And our students are telling us this. Our prospective students are telling us this. If you look at MBA applications across the country, they're going down. Our employers are telling us this, and also the media. So how do we pivot? How do we innovate in a way that meets the needs of our students, of their employers, and of society as a whole? And I'll talk a little bit about that. The third is about community and the importance of having a inclusive and energized community. That was a theme that came up in almost every one of my conversations. It's not unique to Sloan or to MIT because a lot of large organizations in the post-pandemic world are also struggling about how do we actually recreate that sense of community in a more hybrid world. And hybridity has given us a lot of flexibility and freedom, but it has also sometimes undermined that kind of intense community. So it's not going to just happen. It has to be built. And how do we consciously build it? And I think that's important, not just because it's more fun when we have a strong community, but also because we have so much work to do. And the only way that I know how to get that work done is when everyone feels fully engaged in the community. When people are engaged, they're willing to roll up their sleeves, they're willing to come in and lean in and get the work done, and that's what we're doing here as well. And the fourth pillar is to make sure that everything we do, we can do in a way that promotes operational excellence and, of course, fiscal sustainability. So let me tell you exactly what we're doing in those areas and how we're making progress on each one. So in terms of strengthening the connections to MIT and why that is important. One thing that I wanted to share is here's a list, this slide, of some of the sort of presidential strategic initiatives that the president and the provost have launched over the last 18 months around climate and clean energy, around generative AI, around health, around human insight, around advanced manufacturing and policy. Dave and also Georgia were also moving us closer towards being closer to these presidential initiatives. One of the priorities that I've had based on the conversations is how do we make sure that Sloan faculty and students are playing active leadership roles in each one of these initiatives. And so we have MIT faculty who are running with faculty from other parts of MIT, the generative AI initiative, the initiative for new manufacturing, the policy one, the health one, the climate center for MIT is based at Sloan. So if you want integration in a university, the way you do it is not by having people sit together in a committee and talk, right? They'll tolerate each other, but they won't really do anything with that. You have to get people to work together. And by work, they do research together, they teach together, they mentor students together. That's how they come together. And so by being involved in doing research, organizing conferences, engaging in this work, we're actually bringing Sloan faculty closer to the rest of MIT faculty. I am personally very involved in the manufacturing initiative and the policy one. But linked to that is what I said earlier about how might we reimagine education so it also brings us closer to MIT. And why do we need to do this? And I said earlier that it's a pretty open secret that management education has become pretty stale in recent years. But there's some real evidence to suggest, it's not my impression, but it's a general feeling. One is, I hope many of you in this room, if not all of you, don't read this publication. It's called Poets and Quants. It's a magazine that actually talks about business education. It likes to actually have sort of articles about how bad things are, et cetera. And shortly after I started in this job, this one came out about Stanford, where the students were quoted over and over again about saying, we don't learn anything here. We're learning no skills. A few months later, they published another one about Wharton, where the students are also saying, we're spending all this money, we're not learning anything. When I first saw those articles, I breathed an incredible, breath of relief, saying, "Thank God they're writing about them and not us." But the fact is, they could have been writing about us. It's because it's an industry issue. It's not an individual school issue. So that's one thing that people are basically saying, what's going on here? We're lucky. We're at MIT. We have excellent, really, truly excellent programs, but we can make them even better, which is important. A second thing is just looking at applications. So applications to business school for a number of years have actually been going down. At MIT, for a number of years, they've been basically stagnant. Forget about 2021, because that's sort of the pandemic year where people didn't have a lot to do, so they went to school. But basically, you see that the numbers are kind of stagnant, and more recently, they've gone down. And a lot of that decline is because there's been a dramatic decline of applications of foreign students to American universities because of the geopolitics and the sentiment that has increased. But that's a sign, right? You would expect it to go up. You would hope it would go up. It's stagnant and now going down. And the other thing that we're seeing is that even at Sloan, where we do normally extremely well around placing our students, that even our students are struggling to make sure that they're getting jobs within the first 3 months of their graduate. And again, it's not unique to us. It's something that's happening in the industry, but there's enough indications there. What publications are saying, what the students in terms of their applications, what the employers are telling us in terms of whether or not they're hiring our students, to suggest maybe it's a moment for us to look closely at what we're doing and reimagine it. And so that's exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to talk about 3 initiatives that we've launched and that will bring us closer to MIT and also help innovate the kind of education that we're doing. The first one I want to talk about is a new certificate program called Catapult. This was the brainchild of dear colleague, Professor Andrew Lowe, who teaches finance. Andrew and I spoke he was the co-chair of the search committee. We talked during that process and then since. And we were talking about how to bring MIT Sloan closer to the rest of MIT. And he had this idea, what if we launched some new certificate programs that actually brought together faculty and students to work on specific issues? And so he, with faculty from one faculty member from biology, another one from nuclear engineering and science, have designed 2 new certificate programs, one on translational medicine, that actually brings together faculty from the life sciences with faculty from Sloan, who are basically going to design courses together, bring their students together, that are going to try to figure out how do we take those innovations in life science and actually think about translating those into new enterprises, new business models, new policies, new ways of thinking about the world. It's really exciting. These courses will have PhD students from the life sciences with Sloan students who have either educational background or professional background in the life sciences, right? They have to be able to hold their own in this classroom with these PhD students. They'll take classes together, they'll do capstones together, they'll have action learning together, and they'll earn this certificate together. The second one is around energy innovation, and it's with faculty in nuclear engineering. And again, How do we take those innovations, commercialize them into viable new enterprises or business models? How do we make sure that the classes have engineering students with Sloan students learning together, doing capstones together, doing action learning together, and maybe even launching companies together? We're launching these two in the fall. I think they're going to be wildly successful. And if they're as successful as we hope, we will then launch other ones in other areas. We'll have an RFP process, so people will come forward, and the idea is you can do whatever you want, but it has to be with another part of MIT, and it has to be about this cutting-edge view. So that's one thing that we're doing. I'm very, very excited about that. This is an experiment that, if it works well, really can change the way we're thinking about management education. Another thing that we've been working on quite a bit is how do we really embed AI in the curriculum? I know there's a lot of controversy around AI. My view of this is that genie has actually left the bottle and it's not going back in, and we need to have to figure out how we manage it and not put our heads in the sand. So what are we doing? Starting now, actually we'll start next week with the Sloan Fellows, every single student in every single one of our programs will have a 9-hour boot camp where they will learn not only how AI works, but how you apply it to different areas. And they'll also learn about what are some of the challenges and risks, right? You know, what are the cognitive risks? What are the social and ethical risks, et cetera? We're making sure that they learn this at the very beginning, and then we're creating space for them to actually build these models and not just consume them. So there's going to be kind of a virtual makerspace every week where the students will come together, because what we're hearing from our employers is that they want to make sure that our students actually have a portfolio of products that they can show, a portfolio of experiences that they actually know how to use these tools in different settings. And so this is just the beginning of what we're doing. And then what we're doing is we're weaving it into all of our courses. So we've already started this with the operations research, OM, stats group. So those of you who remember DMD and the follow-on on DMD, this is all going to be AI enhanced, but it's already being woven into strategy, into operations, into marketing, into finance, et cetera. And the idea is that the whole core will have AI to enable our people, not to substitute for the skills and reasoning, but actually, how do you use it so that maybe some things you don't have to do anymore, and it frees you up to do more advanced analysis and reasoning. And those of you who might have heard me speak about this before, is how do you actually lean into your human capabilities so you're using these tools in a way that actually enhances your curiosity, your judgment, your insights, your empathy in ways that I think the world needs. So that's what we're doing. And I think, again, it's brand aligned with MIT. It's what the employers are expecting. It's what the students say that they want. And we'll be able to actually be the school of management that really does this right. And the third innovation that we've just got approved is to launch a new program for the evening MBA. So why would we want to launch yet another program at MIT Sloan? Two reasons. One is, and I think everyone in this room knows this, that MIT Sloan doesn't draw from the central budget of MIT, right? We give. We don't take any money from them. We have traditionally, for a number of decades now, given 10% of our top line, 10% of our fundraising, our tuition, our exec ed, before expenses. It was our way of helping MIT. We pay our own expenses, salaries, buildings, all that stuff comes out of Sloan itself. It gives us some autonomy, but it's a way of helping the university. MIT was one of a handful of universities that experienced an increase in the tax on our endowment returns from 1.4% to 8%. So MIT, and that happened in last July during the big, beautiful bill, or whatever it's called. And what ended up happening is MIT came to us and said, could you help? Because they went from basically running a positive margin to suddenly having a $300 million annual operating deficit. And of course we have to help, because Sloan is only as strong as MIT is strong. And so we negotiated to give an additional 5%, which is a lot. It's an additional like $12 million to central MIT, So one very practical reason why we're doing this is because for us to pay that money, we need to actually increase our student body because we basically earn a lot of money from our tuition, number one. But two, it's because we realized that there was an incredible market opportunity there. If you look at our peers, Chicago, Northwestern, Berkeley, Columbia, they all have evening MBA programs. We don't. We have some local evening MBA programs at BU, BC, et cetera, but there wasn't a kind of a premium brand in the local market. And we thought, well, let's go look at what that market looks like. And when we did, we realized that there were all these people who had the same scores and the same grades as our regular MBA students, but who actually didn't want to, for whatever reason, leave their job. They actually wanted to stay in their job and advance in their careers, but they wanted to actually gain skills to do that. And so we decided, wow, that would be a wonderful group to have. And if they come in the evening, we don't have to build a new building. We already have the classrooms. And we have the faculty, especially as we're growing, to teach them. And so this is what we're going to be doing. It's exactly the same kind of population as the MBA. In terms of experience, in terms of accomplishments. They'll be more regional, so it's also a way for us to play a larger role in the regional economy. And what we did to make sure, because people were very worried, like, is this going to somehow dilute the brand, and what's going to happen with that? And just to be frank, if you look at some of these other evening MBA programs and some of these other peers, and we did this analysis and looked at sort of how does it compare in terms of the GPA and test scores versus a day. They actually are a little lower than their day students. We didn't want that. That would be a really not great thing for us. So we did a lot of market analysis. We had thousands of people express interest. We interviewed hundreds of them. We got the record. And then what we did is we ran a mock session. So we did this preview event where people had to apply as if they were applying to Sloan. They filled out an application, they put in $100 to participate in this sort of mock session where they would come for 2 evenings and they would learn, strategy, finance, and accounting. 75 people got qualified. We had a very large waiting list. And after they did the classes, we gave them a quiz to see if they actually understood what was going on. And the faculty, and our faculty are sometimes, cynical, our faculty came back saying, these are amazing students. We really want them. Can we let them in right away? And so that's what we did. And we got it approved recently. So we will be launching this new program, not this fall, but the next fall. Again, just I know that I see Terry knows how universities work, but just to understand, to get faculty to show up for a meeting, let alone vote, is a challenge. And so the vote can only be senior faculty, right? And so we have 117 total faculty. Not all of them are senior. We had 80 people show up for the first vote, and 78 voted yes, and only 2 abstained. And then a couple of people didn't show up for the second vote because we did different rounds to make sure that people, were totally on board. And we got, again, 75 votes, still those 2 abstentions. But this is incredible. So this just shows the kind of momentum that we have. And each one of these pilots gives us an opportunity to kind of experiment and innovate with the curriculum, rethink what we're doing, which then we can diffuse in all of our programs. So that's the second thing that we've been working on. The third has to do with financial sustainability and operational excellence. So you saw that our fundraising is doing very well, which is fantastic, and it's really, kudos to Kathy and her team, who are really, really amazing. But we also have to sort of get our house in order. And one of the things that I learned when I came in, is that we were actually sort of depleting our reserves because we were spending more than we were taking in, and on average about $18 million. And so we thought, all right, that has to stop. So how do we reduce some of the expenditures, promote greater efficiency, and maybe increase our revenue? So that was where the $45 million comes from. Is 18 million of it is just because we needed to sort of fill that gap. 12 million is because we have to contribute more to MIT Central, and the other 15 million is something that we decided as a school to actually put away in reserve. So grow our reserves So if we have to renovate a building or we have to do something, we would have a healthy reserve. And so that's what we're doing. In the first year, we've already achieved 44% of that goal through some non-salary budget reductions. We got out of some leased space that we had and brought people together. MIT had a salary freeze, and so we're able to take advantage of that. So we're really looking at everything, including we are reviewing all of our centers and all of our programs. So going forward, we're looking at our teaching capacities. We're seeing, since we're looking at the different centers, are there opportunities for some shared services? Does every one of our 20 research centers need their own web person and financial analysts and stuff? Or could they be some shared services? And let's just sort of make sure that we're doing the best we can while maintaining the excellent quality of service that our students and staff and faculty expect of us. Let me just say a few words and then we'll transition. As I said, one of the most important things that I heard was the importance of actually rebuilding this community. When we used to be, and when I first started here, and we were all crammed into E52 and the building was falling apart around us, there was like an incredible, vibrant community. Like MIT Sloan wasn't known for the beautiful buildings that it had. Now we have beautiful buildings, but it was known for this incredible dynamic community. And that kind of dissipated as a result of the pandemic, as it did in many other places. How do we rebuild it? And so we've been actively working on that by doing some very kind of straightforward, simple things, like have the faculty share their research with one another, not in the kind of narrow research seminar way, but more publicly. How do they share their work with the staff? How do we actually do executive education courses with the staff to think about, operational excellence and strategic thinking and things like that? We have now this thing called MIT Sloan Hub. Again, last year when I was visiting, I had a breakfast with a group of students, and they said, we love MIT. It's really hard to navigate because there's so many different sites that we have to tap into. This one to figure out our courses, that one for finances, this is the clubs, this is another one for what other activities. Couldn't it be easy just to have it all on one app? And I'm like, yeah, that could be easy. And so fortunately, it was building on work that had already happened. And now we have something called Sloan Hub, which now the students can actually see everything they need to know easily, and it's customized to their needs, so they can see that, and we're going to roll out one for the staff as well. So we're doing a lot of those things as well as your traditional kind of social events, and we're doing it around the world too, not just here, but elsewhere. So these are some of the things that we've been doing. We've been actually working very carefully. We have a wonderful HR director here, Liz Roberts, and working so when I was at Apple, I was a vice president on the people team, so HR, as well as the dean of Apple University. And some of the things that I learned there, I thought we could be doing here. And one of the things that Liz and I have been talking about is, could we create a rotation program for the staff here at MIT, where people, everyone always thinks that the way that you have to grow your career is kind of a career of like sort of climbing the ladder. But maybe it could be a career where you're just deepening your expertise, you're sharing it, you're learning different things, and you're being rewarded for that. And so we're creating a rotation program where we can actually have staff work in different parts of the school, learn something, share their expertise, grow, and actually be rewarded for that. What I saw in the engagement scores at Apple is that employee engagement scores for people who did a rotation was as high as for those that actually got promoted. So we can do something similar. So we're doing a lot of work to try to build this community. So that gives you an update on what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do, and how we're making progress towards these goals. But before I turn it over to the Fireside Chat, I also want to acknowledge and announce the winner of the MIT Sloan Dean's Distinguished Leadership Award. And this is an award that recognizes innovative principal leaders who embodies our highest values. And today, it gives me great pleasure to announce the recipient of this award, who is a true giant in the field of finance and an alumnus of the class of 1969, which is Ed Hyman. So congratulations. So Ed is the founder and chairman of Evercore ISI. Ed revolutionized economic research by blending rigorous data with practical real-world insight. His brilliance has been unmatched. He was ranked the #1 Wall Street economist for an unprecedented 44 years by Institutional Investor. And beyond these kinds of metrics, Ed's career is defined by really an incredible level of integrity. In a volatile industry, he has remained a beacon of transparency and long-term trust. And Ed's work has had impact not only here on campus, he's been incredibly generous with us around fellowships, buildings, et cetera, but also to so many other individuals and organizations and communities, et cetera. Ed's life and career serve, I think, as an ultimate blueprint for leadership, for innovation, and for citizenship. And while Ed is not able to be with us today, we are recording this for him. So please join me again in a round of applause to celebrate Ed. And with that, why don't we turn to the Fireside Chat with Miro Kazakoff, class of 2011. Yeah. 11.
So welcome back to Sloan.
It's great.
One of the things when Rick was first hired, I have a chance for many of the people that we all called faculty members, and I now get to call my colleagues. I sort of went around and I asked, what's the deal with Rick? And everyone, and this is very unusual for faculty members to agree on something, was like, we are so excited and thrilled to have him back. Also, you have just an incredible resume for this job, a distinguished scholar here at MIT, leadership of a university at Brown, and then many years as the lead of Apple University. And I thought, California weather, probably better money. Why come back? What pulled you back?
Yeah, this morning I was wondering the same thing. I really liked my time at Apple. It was really, really fantastic. And Apple, and I think I liked it so much because it reminds me so much of MIT. It's an excellent organization filled with technically trained, inspired people with sort of some aesthetics in there as well, and really, really good values. The only place that I would have left Apple for is for MIT. So when I got the call, if I'd be interested in throwing my hat in the ring for this job, at first I was hesitant, but I did have a conversation with the search committee, and I was reminded by how special this community is. Just, the people are just so nice and smart and down to earth and good and doing great work, and I'm like, I want to go back. Yeah. And so that's why. It's the community, it's the people.
Okay, excellent. And your research, so you had a distinguished career as a researcher, and you mostly focused on sort of work in manufacturing, and particularly like how we sort of manage manufacturing processes to be humane and good to workers. How does that inform how you think about kind of leadership in this phase of your career and the challenges? Like how has your thinking evolved on that, and how does it apply to the work that you do now?
Yeah, so my research, studied different problems over time, but there was sort of a thread that connected the different projects over the years, and it was always trying to figure out how do you balance sort of enhancing efficiency and competitiveness, whether it's industry in Italy or the unification of the two Germanys or supply chains, whatever I was working on at the time. How do you balance that with actually enhancing the possibilities for people who were most impacted by these processes? And part of that has to do with my own background. I come from a working class background. I was the first person in my family to go to a four-year college. And I saw the power that education could have. And I also remember the conversations around the kitchen table where people didn't feel like they had the power and the autonomy to actually be masters of their own destiny at work. And I felt like, well, that doesn't sound like a good thing to do. So how do we figure this out? And I feel like my research really was trying to show, like, even if you're in supply chains, you can run an incredibly efficient factory and respect environmental standards and labor standards. Or even if you're restructuring industry, you can do it in a way that gives employees a voice and maybe upskill them, et cetera. So always thinking that way. And I guess I think the same way about leadership. I think that what's really, really important these days is to try to lean into the challenges and problems that we're facing, not lean away from them. So yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, and there's some really, really big problems, huge challenges, or whether we're talking about climate and the environment, whether we're talking about access to affordable, high-quality healthcare for many people in this population. We're thinking about like the future of work and what Gen AI is going to do to careers and jobs and industries. These are big, big challenges. And rather than sort of just assume you know the answer or lean away from them, I think let's lean in, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out in a way that's mutually beneficial. That's what I tried to do in my research, and that's what I feel like my leadership style is. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I am really lucky that I'm part of a community of really smart people, and that collectively we'll be able to figure that out.
One big one, right, is AI, and I hear students talk about AI in the same way, right? Obviously, an incredible, our students have an incredible amount of optimism, and they're pointed at the future, but also some of that sense of powerlessness that you're talking about. What do you think kind of a Sloan role is in this transition that's coming?
Yeah, so I think we can play a really, really important role because we have the platform of MIT and MIT Sloan, and people will listen to us. We're known always as being an institution that's at the cutting edge of innovation and technology. But MIT Sloan has a long tradition focusing on the human side of enterprise. In 1959, Douglas McGregor, a professor here at Sloan, published a book called The Human Side of Enterprise, which talked about Theory X and Theory Y. What were different ways of motivating people. Theory X was, just like cut costs as much as possible and basically over-monitor the workers because otherwise they're going to be lazy and shirk. And Theory Y was, no, people actually are inherently curious and motivated and want to do the right thing. Give them the possibilities to do that, and they will. That's what Sloan did. I believe we're exactly in this moment now. And so what we need to do is, while we're educating our students and our staff and our faculty about how to use these very, very powerful tools and how to apply them to different use cases, which I think is very, very important, that we have to basically say, and while you're doing that, lean into your human capabilities. And I think, I'm informed by this by reading the research of my colleagues. So if I look at the research of Roberto Rigoban and Isabella Luisa, they basically studied 950 job families, and within those, 19,000 tasks. And they identified really great work, showed that in those jobs that have the most penetration of AI, that's where certain human capabilities like empathy, curiosity, et cetera, are more important. And that same theme comes in, Simon Johnson, Dorona Samoglu, two faculty members who are also Nobel Prize winners. That's also a theme in their book. So I feel like this is possible. And MIT is actually doing this. And I think if we can show that this is a moment of choice and not inevitability, and we can make the choice to actually build the tech stack in a way that actually enhances the integration of innovation with human capabilities and lean into that, that will be great for the future. And since it comes from MIT, people will listen. So that's how I think about this.
Yeah. I've heard you talk also, and I hear it in that answer, like the specialness of MIT being a mission-driven place, in the sense, we have up on the wall in E62, like in the stone, we have a mission. How do you think about what that means day to day for MIT Sloan in this phase of our existence? Like, why is that important? How do you think about what brings that alive?
I think what makes MIT Sloan so special is its mission. That we are a school that is committed to developing innovative and principled leaders who are actually going to go out and improve the world. Like, that's what it's about. And I think that anchors every single decision that we have to make. as we're thinking about which programs to launch, which ones to sunset, which ones to, invest in, maybe which ones to divest in. It should always be driven by that anchor. Like, if we do this, will this allow us to actually realize our mission, which is really to produce amazing people who are going to improve the world in whatever way they think is best to do. We don't tell them how to do that, but that's what we want. We're going to give them not only the skills, but the sensibilities to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the big priorities is like increasing the connection with MIT. Yep. How do you think about doing that? And does it look different than when you were sort of here in your kind of first tour, that sense of connection? What's changed?
Things have changed. This is actually really one of the wonderful things. First of all, coming back, you come back and appreciate things that you noticed and maybe liked, but you didn't really fully value, and now you have been away and you come back and say, wow, this is really special. But I think the world's, MIT has changed in a really, really interesting way, which is, it used to be that, we were part of MIT, we had sort of connections, mostly individual connections as opposed to institutional connections. I think Dave Schmidtlein and Georgia somewhat brought us closer, but I think normally, or traditionally, Sloan was kind of like the satellite on the east side of campus. And I think the rest of the campus thought of us as like greedy, less intelligent, members of the community. And we thought they were kind of out of it and didn't, fully recognize our value and stuff like that. That's really changed. Not only do I hear from the Sloan students, and I was reading their exit interviews, and they all say, we loved being here. We wish we had more to do with MIT. So we're making that happen, as you saw from the presentation. But I'm seeing also from the deans of science and engineering and architecture, et cetera, they open arm want to collaborate with us. They want to teach with us. We're going to be doing joint hiring, where we have faculty from Schwartzman and Sloan, from engineering and Sloan, et cetera. That will be part of our community. And I think there really is an openness because, as I said in a variety of different settings, I think our role is really the translation role. Yeah. That we're linking those innovations into translating those into sort of really exciting new business models and enterprises. And I think it's a really interesting moment at MIT, and it's an amazing moment in the world because the world needs what we have to offer. Yeah.
I hate to ask you to speculate about other people, but what do you think changed?
What changed?
Like you're saying, sort of they have a different kind of orientation towards...
I think the world has changed. Yeah. I mean, I think people really have understood that if we're going to address these really big challenges in the world, we need to know something about the domain, which is usually kind of a technical knowledge, and we have to know something about how to make that knowledge into something real. Yeah. And I think I think what's changed is people recognize, like, yeah, we need both sets of skills. We need teams that have both kinds of people together. And I think that's what's changed, an appreciation for both kinds of knowledge. Yeah. An appreciation, by the way, on both sides.
Right. All right. How can we help? Like, how are alumni a part of this?
So as an alum,
how can I help?
Well, Miro is being very humble. Miro is one of the star teachers of MIT Sloan, so he's not just an alum, but he's really an amazing thing. So just keep doing what you're doing, please, and that's how you can help.
As long as you will let me.
I think the best way to help is be engaged in the network for one another. And for the school. As I was mentioning, this is a tricky time for higher education. It's a tricky time even for our students. And I spoke to some of the alumni dinners last night, and I said there's some tangible things that people can do, like offer a capstone project, for our students, offer an internship for our students. If there's a job possibility, get in touch with us. We'll send you the resume book. Like, it's really important at this moment that we support one another and we support the next generation. That's probably the most important thing that I think the alums can do. And then all of you showing up today for one another and for the school and supporting the school in the way that you have, as the numbers show that alums are doing, that's really fantastic. So that's how you can help.
Okay. You ready for the lightning round?
Yeah.
Okay. Move over to cards here for this one. Okay, short questions. Answers can be short or long, as ever you please here. Favorite place on campus?
Infinite corridor.
All right. How come?
It makes me feel at home. The first couple days when I came back and started the job, I thought to myself, like, what did I do? Like, how did I get myself into this? Because, of course, they hide things, and then they say, oh, by the way, welcome. Here's the budget deficit. And I just thought, like, how is this happening? And then I had to go to a meeting on the other side of campus, and I was walking through the Infinite Corridor, and it felt familiar. And I'm like, I'm at home. Everything is great.
Best restaurant in Cambridge?
Oleana.
Solid choice. Book you wish you had read earlier in life?
Oh, wow. Talk of Love.
I'm not familiar. Who's it by? What
Talk of Love is a book by a sociologist, and I am forgetting her name now, from Berkeley, where she went around and interviewed couples all over Silicon Valley. And asked people, she said, we always talk about love, it's in all our music and our popular culture and our novels and stuff. What does it really mean? What are people really doing? And so she went and interviewed all these people, and she realized that everyone talks about love, but they have different narratives. Like, love, you got to work for it, it's not going to happen. Or love is passion at first sight. Or love is like, oh well, I love you even though I'm still not, like all these different definitions. And she said, you should think about this as a cultural toolbox, where we basically have in this toolbox different conceptions of what love is, and we pull them out whenever we need it in different areas. And I thought, like, that was really smart. Yeah. Because if you think about, your love when you're young, the way you love your kids, your grandkids, the way you love your colleagues, et cetera, they are different kinds of love, and those evolve over time, as opposed to sort of, making judgments about like, so I have a almost 3-year-old grandson, who is the love of my life, and completely passionate. And I'm just like, I go see him, and my daughter's there, and I maybe kiss her on the cheek, but barely. And I just dash for him, and she was like, "What about me?" I'm like, "You had your time. It's all about him." And I realized it's not because I don't love her anymore. Of course I do. It's just different kinds of love. So that was a book that gave me a sense of the nuance of that emotion. I wish I had read that when I was in my late teens.
There's something about the grandparent-grandchild relationship, too. It's just one of the best. Last place you found, place as generally conceived as possible, last place you found inspiration?
So there's 2 places I feel I find inspiration. One is here.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely love being here. I love coming to work. I'm one of those people who's lucky, who has a bounce in his step going to work, because I will sit in a room, and whatever meeting it is, and I'm just surrounded by like super smart people doing good work and good people. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I mean, I will literally come home and say, I was just in this meeting and there were like 2 Nobel Prize winners in it, and stuff, and like I couldn't believe I was in the room with them, and yet we were all just wrestling and problem solving together as equals. I mean, that's special. So that's one thing. And then the second one is linked to the grandson story. Like, wherever he is, I find inspiration. And that's because, not just because he's my grandson, but because when you're close to these young children, it's something that we forget even as our kids grow up, but there is such a curiosity and an excitement and a joy of the world. And you look at this and you realize, we should all be like that. Like, we should all have that. And that's what I think we can do at MIT Sloan, is build a world or rebuild a world where everyone can feel that excitement and curiosity and engagement, just like young people do.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to some audience questions. There is a note I give to my students whenever we're about to do this. which is that there's about 400 people in this room, maybe a few hundred other people watching. We are open for any question that you have, but please just double check beforehand if this is a question you think would be valuable for 400 people to hear the answer to. Inside of that framework, we are open to anything. We do have some mic runners around, so if folks want to raise their hand, we will get a microphone
And
to
you can tell why he's a good teacher. He's very clear about the instructions.
Good afternoon, Dean Locke. Thank you so much. I'm very excited about what you've laid out. I'm Cheryl Stokes. I am Leaders for Global Operations class of 1996.
That's great.
So, I want to shout out that our program is an example of what you've talked about, the collaboration between the broader MIT and Sloan. So I'm super excited to be here. I love the priority around inclusion and engaging environment. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on the impact of this current environment, the Supreme Court ruling on race and admissions. It's certainly impacted the visible diversity of college campuses everywhere, from international students, and particularly with historically marginalized populations like African American, Latina, Indigenous. And so, you know, we know inclusion is not about quotas or numbers. It is about more innovative solutions, different experiences, and greater impact. How do you see Sloan working to increase and to navigate this environment where there are true challenges to having people come to the table who have a lot to offer our programs?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for that. So when I was at Apple, I had a brief period where I also served on the corporation at MIT, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience, and was involved in a series of conversations about how an institution like MIT could respond and what was happening as a result of the change in the Supreme Court ruling and then the current political environment. The way that I think about it is this. MIT has always been a place that recruits the best talent from all backgrounds, all walks of life, races, religions, political perspectives, et cetera, because talent is distributed everywhere. And that's what we've always been about. I'm so proud that we're an institution that doesn't have legacy admissions, doesn't give honorary degrees. You got to earn it. And so many of our students, especially undergraduates, are on financial aid. And many of them are first-generation students. So I think that that's really important. Unfortunately, we've seen a pretty dramatic decline in not only enrollment, but also applications. And so we have to be active about that and do that. So what we did is we have now embedded the work that we were doing around inclusion and community into the different, so rather than have like a separate organization that sometimes is engaged with the rest of the school, sometimes isn't, what we're doing is making sure that we're doing that work with admissions, with CDO, with HR, with student life, et cetera. And we meet together as a team. I personally meet with that team every single month, and we say, what are we doing to expand the pipeline? So this is, and it's very, so step back. When I was provost at Brown, I co-authored the strategic plan for increasing diversity of the university. And the plan was to double the percentage of underrepresented faculty and double the percentage of graduate students and medical students of the university. And we did that in 7 years. And we were able to do this, so not the number, but the percentage. And we were able to do that because we actively went out and recruited talent and then made sure that when people were here, they would feel seen and valued for who they are. It's that inclusion part that's actually harder than the compositional diversity part. And so that's what we did. So I'm taking some of those lessons and we're doing it here. So for example, how do we build pipeline programs with historically black colleges and universities? It's not against the law to do that, even in today's environment, because those universities are actually open to everyone. So how do we do that? So we're attracting amazing talent here. How do we go to the right kinds of fairs and surveys and stuff? And how do we make sure this fellowship number, the $200 million of endowment, that's to make sure that at least 50% of our students in the MBA program have at least 50% fellowship. So how do we make sure that We can not lose talent because other universities have more money and give better fellowships than us. So it's all of these different levers that I think we are working on. We have real headwinds, as you know, but I think it's the right thing to do. And it's also the smart thing to do. And so just like I don't believe that we can reignite the community by just letting it happen, we have to purposely do something. I think we have to do the same thing with recruiting talent, whether we're talking about staff or students or faculty. And I'm happy to go into really great detail about that, but thank you for your question.
Dean, thank you for your presentation. My name is Luis Ayon, Sloan Fellow, class of 2016. It's been 10 years. Love to see my classmates. I wanted to ask you, and thank you for the investment in the new community that you're creating. Obviously, we all are invested in the brand and the value of what it means to be an MIT alum, an MIT Sloan alum. And I wanted to kind of get your thoughts around how do you see us in terms of that community as a benchmark against our peers? You mentioned some of your peers, but of course we always look at the school up the river, and how we know how close they are. I have a lot of friends that go there, and how they talk about themselves when somebody calls and they call from that school to an alum. There's always that answer. I can't say that's 100% true here, and I hope that changes under your leadership, and I think it's the engagement with alumni, and of course it's always an exchange of value, what we give back to you and how much we receive from this school. And so I love your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, again, great question. So sometimes people kind of conflate, because I've heard this before, like, HBS and Wharton or even Stanford, those alums are so much more engaged, and, they fight for, the younger generation than the Sloanies do. Not the case for Stanford, but the case for Wharton and HBS. They are significantly larger than we are and have been for many, many, many years. We have, Kathy talked about this, we have, 31,000 alums. Half of them graduated within the last 10 years. So we actually have a pretty small base. And so it's not, and they've been around for a long, long time, these other places. So part of it is the size. Could we do better? Of course, we could do better. And so I think there are two ways I think that we should work on that. One is, how do we sharpen what MIT Sloan is all about? And that's why the strategy is get closer to MIT, make sure that we're providing an education that no one else can provide, educating people with a set of skills that the world really needs, et cetera, and go out there and be the change agents that we want people to be. That word would get out, and so they won't say like, oh, I should go to HBS or Sloan. Those are like apples and oranges. Like, if you want to change the world, come here. If you want to do something else, go there, right? And I won't even mention what that something else is. So part of it is the brand, and part of it is how do we as a school, working with you, and we need your partnership, how do we strengthen the network? That you all showed up, that's a really good first step. But then how do we actually strengthen the network? As I made the appeal, the younger generation needs some help right now. They're coming out into a world that's much more complicated than even the world was 12 months ago. So, let's help them strengthen the network, and that's one way of doing it. So we need to do a better job helping to strengthen and curate that network, but in the longer term, strengthening the brand and the impact that MIT Sloan will have will probably be the very best thing that we can do.
Hi, Dean Locke. I'm Elaine Bortman from the Sloan class of 1991. It's great to see all my classmates here. Thank you guys for traveling all over the world. It's been amazing. Question for you. So obviously one of the key kind of secret weapons of MIT is this kind of relationship between technology and business. And I was particularly interested in hearing about, you're talking about kind of the AI module that you're thinking you're going to be implementing as part of the class experience. I'm wondering, kind of related to the question that was just asked and a connection to alumni, have you thought at all about offering kind of mini courses, even remotely, to alumni who, for those of us who are still working, thinking about AI is kind of one of the things that every business is wrestling with.
Yeah.
And there is potentially a really interesting opportunity to offer a benefit to alumni of the secret weapon of kind of what are we thinking about here in Cambridge across the world to Sloan alums. So have you thought about it? If you have, kind of when do you anticipate that happening? And if you think it's not possible, maybe why not?
Great question. Answer is yes, I have thought about it, but not just me, my wonderful colleagues as well. So on this slide, I didn't go into detail about it, was the last box talked about universal AI. This is a fully online, self-paced, so asynchronous online set of courses and modules that actually teach people how to actually understand the tools, but also how to apply them, not only in different disciplines, but actually in different verticals, different industries. This was something that has been promoted by Dimitri Bertsimas, who's a professor here. He happens to be the associate dean for online education at Sloan, and also associate provost for online education here at MIT. That has been rolled out to the MIT community right now, the current employees, students, and faculty for free. And the plan is to roll it out to our alums. I don't know if it would be for free or but highly discounted, but it's a great, great module, and that's the way to begin to do it. We have been teaching so many exec ed courses, short courses, to alums, not alums, companies from all over the world exactly on this, because sort of, the younger folk, they kind of get it right away. The rest of us, we have to catch up a little bit, and so how can we make that easier? And that's something that we're doing. So stay tuned, because we will definitely be rolling this out to strengthen the network and make sure that all of us are facile, literate, and know how to use it. Great question. Yeah, there's a question here. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Dean. My name is Parthan Bill, 2001 Sloan. One question is, the SMR is a flagship publication over 60 years. What prompted you to shut down the SMR publication?
Yeah, great question. What prompted me to shut it down was an analysis of SMR. So SMR is a publication that's been around for a long time, had a glorious history, but has struggled for decades. And in the analysis that we did this fall, I asked, how's it doing? What's it doing in terms of readership and subscription and impact and followers? And what we learned was that, and by the way, it's not because of SMR, the industry has evolved. People consume content in very, very different ways than they did even a few years ago. And so when I saw, for example, subscriptions, we were between 20 and 100 times behind HBR. In terms of impact, we were third compared to California Management Review and HBR. There are over 100 times more social media followers of the other publications than there were of SMR. So basically, we could have kept it going, right? But it wasn't having the impact and visibility that we needed. And so what we decided to do is basically, let's sort of sunset that current model, and we will launch a purely digital version of SMR that will still have cutting-edge research. It will still disseminate cutting-edge sort of knowledge around management, et cetera. But it will also have podcasts and digital newsletters and videos, et cetera, and give people a variety of sort of bits and bytes so that they can consume the content in the way that they do today. So that's what we're doing. And it was a tough decision because it had been around for a long time, and the people who work there are good people. But I think part of what we have to do is be very clear-eyed about what's working and what's no longer working. And at universities, it's very easy to start things. It's sometimes hard to end things. Sometimes we have to end things so we can free up the resources so that we can actually do some innovative work. So that's why we made that decision. I know there's been some noise out there, but I have to say that within the Sloan community, only 2 faculty asked me about it, and not 1 student. And when I bumped into people, like even in my apartment building, someone said, "Oh, I heard that you shut down SMR." This was a former Sloan faculty member who now teaches at BU. And why? And I said, "Do you read it?" And the answer was no. And so that's why.
Yep. All right, I think we have time for one more. So we have one more question.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Moelia Wilcox, class of 2025. Excited to be here. Thank you. I guess my question is on the learning experience itself. You've spoken about a couple of new programs that you're seeking to launch. I remember when I was here, bidding was such a big thing, and getting access to classes that we're very interested in was such a big thing. And secondly, the teacher-student experience. I saw Miro in the hallway and I said hi to him. I'm just curious how expanding the program to more people is going to change that dynamic. How are you thinking about the capacity of the lecturers? What is the experience going to be like for students in the classrooms? What is the experience going to be for classes that we're really keen to take when you're expanding this to other people?
Yeah, excellent question. So we're expanding both the faculty. So we're growing the faculty. That was the deal that we had with Central MIT. We would contribute more to them. They would allow us to grow our faculty so we could offer more great classes. And we're expanding the evening program, who are people who are already employed. And what we're going to be doing is offering a set of the most popular electives for them that the day MBA students can also bid for and take. So we're actually expanding the pie to actually deal with some of the bottlenecks that some of the students have felt with. So this is a way for us to generate the revenues that we need to grow the faculty, to offer even more of those innovative, exciting courses. And also when we think about innovating the curriculum, are there ways of doing this even in the current framework? So why does the semester have to be, why do our courses have to be in this format that they're currently structured? Can we think about ways of offering really exciting electives in shorter bursts? Take advantage of IAP. Take advantage of lead week or sit week. Think about pre-orientation. Are there ways of doing things so we can actually give the students what they want in ways that they don't feel are always crammed within the constraints? So that's the kind of rethinking that we're doing. But really, really wonderful question.
Rick, I know this is an incredibly busy weekend for you. We put reunion and graduation on the same weekend. He counted several thousand hands he's shaken over the last 24 hours. Thank you for showing up so present today, as you always do. And thank you so much for
Thank you, Miro, for the wonderful question. Thank you. Thank you.